So, question 4, is there any, should we do just C,
Yeah.
4C?
I can't do E, please.
Well, we'll do 4C and then we'll see whether you can apply that to E, because it's very, very similar. Okay? So what we've got to do is we are given, this is quite often an exam question. Right? We've got 3 inequalities. We're given x has to be greater than 0. We're told that y has to be greater than 0 also. And we are told that x plus y has to be less than or equal to 4. Right? So I've got 3 inequalities. 1, 2, 3. Now what that actually means is I am only allowed x and y values that go together, where x has to be bigger than 0, so that would be 1 and above. Y has to be bigger than 0, but then if you add those coordinates together, it has to be less than 4. So if we were to just think of one possible coordinate, 2, 2. X is bigger than 0, yeah. Y is bigger than 0 because it's 2. And 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, so that's kind of on the limit. Right? And there are others. So we're just looking for a region where we can find all of those possible points. So we're going to do it graphically. All right. So if I draw my axis, so if we have a look then at how do I do number 1, where I say x has to be greater than 0. So where is this wall? Where's this barrier I told you about where I can't go? Right, because we're basically saying I'm not allowed to go any further in the x direction than 0, and I'm not allowed to go in the negative way. So we basically have to put this wall up where x is 0. So it just happens to be the y-axis. Yeah? So that line there is when x equals 0, and I have to be greater than it. So I have to go that way. I'm not allowed in the other direction. Make sense? Okay, what about the y has to be greater than 0 then? Number 2. Well, it's the same thing. So if we think going up and down in the y direction, well, I must be stopped when y is at 0 because I have to stay above it. So that's this line, isn't it? It's the axis. So actually this one's nice. These first 2 are done just by using the axis. So we probably didn't actually need to draw anything in specific, but doesn't matter. Right, what about then this x plus y has to be less than 4? So that means we need a wall at when x plus y equals 4. So you've already given me one coordinate that is at that point, which is 2, 2. So actually, why not put a point at 2, 2? There's one of my points, because 2 plus 2 makes for 4, so that's equal to 4. What about another one?
1 and 3. 1 and 2.
But that doesn't equal 4.
1 and 3.
1 and 3, yeah? 1 and 3. Now, do you notice how before I said you put 1 is 0, you work the other one out, but you don't have to. You don't have to use 0. This one's nice and easy. I know 2, 2, so 2 and 2 works. I also know that 1 and 3 works, so there's a point. I also know that 3 and 1 works. I know that 4 and 0, and 0 and 4. So actually, my other line is here. Okay. So I just keep going, right? Just because that's how far I've drawn. Now, which side of that do I need to be?
If it's just greater than or less than,
Okay, so I've got to have less than 4. So that means the coordinates have to add up to be less than 4. So this is nice and easy. Let's pick 1, 1. Is that the right side of the line or the wrong side of the line? So 1 plus 1 is less than 4. So that's the one I'm allowed, yeah? So that means, well, now think back. So this is the first one. X has to be greater than 0. So let's shade out that region. So I'm not allowed anything this side of the line. Y has to be greater, so that's that one. I'll do it in different colours for you. Y has to be greater than 0, so I'm not allowed below this line. Okay, so that's that one. And then finally, x plus y has to be less than 4. Well, that's that point there. So I'm allowed that point, so I'm not allowed that side of the line. Okay, so that's that inequality done. So where's my region?
That one.
My region is here. Okay.
Sure.
Any questions on that?
That's all we have to do.
That's it. What we'll do then is we'll talk the next stage now for all of you that did your homework, understand it, and are ready to move on. If you're not at that point and you feel you need to do some more, or you didn't understand what to do for your homework, so you need to catch that up, you can sort of carry on and do a couple more, but then when you're ready you can go on to the next stage. So what we would do though, the next phase is about identifying points within this region that I'm allowed to use. Alright, so for instance, if I were to say to you, what would be the maximum x value that I am allowed to use, and why? So within this region, and are we allowed the lines?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are. Okay, so the maximum x value would be in this region and on the lines because I'm allowed. If it wasn't on the lines, it'd make it a bit more difficult because I'd be allowed decimals and things like that. Okay. Well, actually, you'd find it very difficult to write down. They probably wouldn't ask that if it was a dotted line because it'd be a very difficult one to do. But what about, for instance, if I introduced a different one and went, what is the minimum value of 2x plus y? Given the x and y values I'm allowed. Why do you say what you're saying? So what's the minimum value of 2x plus y? Now remember, these are coordinate pairs. I've got to keep the coordinates. 2, y2. But I want to know what the minimum value of 2x plus y would be.
Because 2 times 2 plus 0 is 4.
What if I told you the answer was 0?
The answer is 0.
That's what you said. Why did you say that?
Well, because the minimum value of both is 0. And
Yeah.
2 times 0 is 0.
So this one here, the minimum value of 2x plus y, I'm allowed, basically, if I'm going to pick integer values, that's how we would do it. The values that I'm allowed to use would be these points here. So let me just make it. I'm allowed this point, all of these coordinate points I'm allowed to use if I stick to integer values. And they have to stick together as pairs. I can't just randomly choose them. Right? So out of all those dots, which one would be the one that would give me the minimum value of 2x plus y? This one, because when x is 0, y is 0, and that would give me 2x plus y would be 0, and I can't get any smaller than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
However, what if I said, what's the maximum value of 2x plus y?
2.
Why 4?
Because that's what you can. That's the only thing you can go up to. You can't go beyond that.
No?
Wait, what? What did you say, Alex? I'm right? I don't know.
Why 12?
Because the maximum value for x and y is 12. I mean, it's 4. And then you can 4.
No, because they have to stick together a particular coordinate. So I can't pick the x coordinate from one point and the y coordinate from another point. You know what I mean? So these points have to stay together. So for instance, if I were to pick this point here, because you think, well, that was the maximum y value, the x value, so what about that? So we'll say that, how about this one? So we've got when x equals 4, but what does y equal? There? 0. So therefore 2x plus y would be, no, not in this one, because we've said only whole number values. That's why I did the pink dots. So 2x plus y would actually equal 8. Can we do any better than that? 3 and 2. Well, like 3 and 2 is outside of my region. I can't use that. But what about 3 and 1? So what about, we'll say, when x is 3, y has to be 1. So that would be 2x plus y would equal 7. Okay.
No, that's still not good anymore. Could it not be 4 and 1?
Well, it might be that 2x plus y equals 8 is actually the biggest one. And the reason is we've tried this one, and we've tried this one, and this one is the biggest. Why would I think there's no point going anywhere else?
Because the further you go up,
It goes outside the region.
No, because it's not. The more you go up, the smaller the number's going to be, because that's.
But which one is the more important? In 2x plus y, which one do you need to be the big? The x, because it's times by 2. The y, you just take it. So the biggest impact on 2x plus y is the x. So you try and get the x to be as big as possible. And the biggest x is 4. But then y is 0. So we have to consider the next one along. Well, there's no point doing that because I've got the same x, but I've got more y's there. So obviously that one's going to be bigger than there. But we do a check and go, all right, 2 times 3, well, okay. Well, obviously dropping 1, doubling that difference, and then only adding 1 on y, that's going to make not much of a difference. So that's why this coordinate here will also give me the maximum value for 2x plus y. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's the next stage. If you have a look, everyone can do this. If you have a look now on page 644, basically that's what we've just been doing. So when you look at it, you're looking at the coordinates within that region, and you are asked, for instance, if you have a look at question 1 on page 645, part D, find the greatest and least values of 2x plus y. Oh, we did the same thing. Okay? So it's just about within the region that you've identified, how do I get the least or the most, or that kind of thing. Does that make sense? So you've got 2 things to do now. One is make sure you're happy with finding the regions. What I would do actually, even if you are happy, have a look at question 5 as well. Just see whether you can do that as well, because that's drawing the inequalities from the graph. It's doing the reverse. If you're happy with that, move on to the next page, which is the integer points in the region. The problem solving extension bit, worth having a look at if you wish. It's not necessary, but if you want to challenge yourself, have a look at the problem solving extension stuff. So you've got those things to do now. Make sure you're happy with part B, so questions 4 and 5. Go on to the integer stuff and then the problem solving. Make sense? And let me know where you need any help.